this is our timeline from 1889 to 1930. Seattle, Washington burned to the ground during the Great Seattle Fire when glue overheated in a lab. It burned down 25 to 35 blocks of Seattle while everyone was up on a hill watching the fire burn. By the time the firemen stopped the fire, it had burned down about 35 blocks. Seattle, Washington became a U.S. state on November 11th, 1889.
So, World War I is sometimes referred to as the Great War because of its large, because it was known to be one of the highest casualty rates during the war.
The war happened in July 1914 to November 1918. This war included the Allies against the Central Powers of Europe.
This war was a great help to the economy in Washington State due to the production needed.
As the war began to end, production faltered, and this is where the change came.
This change in war production to civilian-style production created what we call now the economic boom. This boom later came to create a new industrialized era all over the country.
So, migration and immigration. Migration and immigration. Immigrants came from all over the world at this time. The first wave of Koreans immigrated from the years 1903 to 1905. The first wave of Filipinos came from the years 1903 to 1910. These people immigrated and migrated because in some cases they wanted to come for new world opportunities. Others wanted a new life and a fresh start. There were lots of people that immigrated and migrated.
The economic boom was a certain time period from 1918 to 1929 where there was a lot of great economic prosperity. A lot of this was due to the war effort during World War I, as the production rate had to be boosted. Furthermore, in the years after the war, many people had money and it was a very good time to be an entrepreneur. Lastly, although this time of good economy was very good to the American people, it later came with an unexpected halt as the Great Depression entered.
Okay, the Great Depression. After nearly a decade of optimism and prosperity, the United States was thrown into despair on Black Tuesday. October 29, 1929, the day the stock market crashed, and the official beginning of the Great Depression. As the stock prices plummeted with no hope of recovery, panic struck. Masses of people tried to sell their stock, but no one was buying. The stock market, which had appeared to be the surest way to become rich, quickly became the path to bankruptcy.
Arts and entertainment. Arts and entertainment included carnivals, dance marathons, and jazz music. The community was entertained greatly by the people entertaining them. The age of dancing and carnivals and fun things to do brought forth the idea of new and exciting shows to Seattle. The entertainment brought to Seattle were the dreams that people thought would never come true, yet their shows were amazing so they'd get more people. I think that entertainment brought forth to Seattle changed the way people looked at arts and entertainment and Seattle for the better.
The Roaring Twenties, the age of dancing and carnivals and fun things to do brought forth the idea.
The entertainment brought to Seattle were dreams that people thought would never come true, yet their shows are amazing so they get more people.
The Jazz Age was specifically used to entertain the community. The Jazz Age was a time period where people had fun, danced, and listened to music. Quoted, a strong jazz movement engulfed Seattle a generation ago. Rock and other pop musicians from Seattle have set national trends, with Jimi Hendrix furthermost among them. Such groups as Nirvana and Pearl Jam developed a worldwide following. They say that rock culture is celebrated the Experience Music Project Museum in Seattle. And women in World War I. The women did all kinds of things in World War I. They served as construction workers, telephone operators, farm workers, and they worked in factories making munitions. Working in factories was a dangerous job. Farming was an important job. The women were ones to keep things running until the men came back and claimed their jobs back and from the women. And the women went back home at the end of the war and started working again, working around the house and raising the children again.
That's the end.
We're not done! We're not done!
We're not done. Where are my notes? Wait, hold on. Oh, right here. Okay. Sit. So this is World War I. This is at the beginning where Germany began its invasion tactics. Also the Russian army, again the French. There's a lot of war movement during this time, especially with the German new movements towards their offensive attacks on France, Belgium, and Russia, which were the central. The central powers included the Ottoman Empire, the Austria-Hungary, and Germany, along with a couple of other countries. So soon after, the war began to show itself as a very, very dangerous thing to people.
Also, after the war and before the war too, women would make a recreational center for soldiers that were actually disabled or would try to walk or move again.
During this time, before World War I, war was considered to be a great show of honor and strength to a country or a certain person. Later, after World War I, it was seen to be as a horror to the people fighting it.
Also in the war, Austria-Hungary took over Siberia, which is an ally to one of our in World War I. And also in the war, how World War I began was the British had a luxury liner, which is called the Lusitania, which was sunk by a U-boat from Germany, which led the U.S. one of the events that led the U.S. into a World War I.
As you can see here, this is called trench warfare. It was where people would hide in trenches, and there'd just be a lot of bombardment by artillery. If you're close by the sea, naval bombardment. Here you see a machine gun of its time. During these trench warfares, people would run out of trenches in just long lines, and with these machine guns, they'd all just be shot down. And if you could survive, you'd probably end up dying.
Also, how he talked about trenches, they would dig up holes in the ground and make pathways to get to the other side and infiltrate from the back of the army. And also, they would put explosives and wire them up and then make them make an explosion that would happen on the other side, would kill thousands of soldiers.
What you just saw was people wearing gas masks, and this was one of the only wars where toxic gases were used, except until Syria. Toxic gases were very harmful. They could blind people. They killed a lot of people during the war, and it was very dangerous.
One type of gas was the mustard gas, which would basically kill you if you would stand in it more than. It would kill you in 10 seconds if you breathe in it.
Okay. So here you see is just a rush of troops. They have these new type of weapon called the bayonet. It was an attachment towards your rifle, or you could just jab them in their gut or hit them in their chests with your rifle. There were a lot of injuries. People would have to rush out into the battlefield to maybe pull out surviving soldiers, and it was a very dangerous job for the medics because that means going over the top, which is over on the top of the trenches into no man's land, which is in between both fighting trenches.
No man's land was basically, even if you, they would be like stripped with barbed wire, and it would they would either get killed, and if a wounded person's inside no man's land, then one person would come up, and sometimes they would save them, and sometimes they wouldn't, which basically they mean they both die together.
Here you see Canada was time. Artillery was very useful during that time. It bombarded a lot of troops during World War I. There was a lot of new inventions coming around, and it killed a lot of people.
Yeah, as you see with the sandbags on it, those were called bunkers. They used those so they would have an easy, they wouldn't get hit while they were shooting through it. Sometimes enemies would shoot through it, and they would kind of make it explode.
Right there, those are called German stormtroopers, or Sturmtruppen in German, and these soldiers were made to attack all the line of defenses and go in quick and fast. They used flamethrowers to burn out soldiers in World War I.
Also, one of our allies, which was Russia, which had more land than any of our allies. We were on both sides of enemy ground, and half Germany and Austria-Hungary would take half of it almost every year, and then we would fight back to get it. As you see here, there is a lot of dead bodies, and these are the soldiers that would get shot through the head or through the stomach in no man's land.
Yeah, they'd just be found there lying after the war. There, some people got killed in trenches with grenades.
Also, in the war, after the war, they would find these bodies, and so they would hold a ceremony for all the soldiers that passed away. So they would go to every person's house and say that your husband or your son was killed in action.
There was a lot of destruction during that time. A lot of civilians died in Russia, especially because of its large loss rate.
You have exactly 2 minutes left.
No, we're done.
No, this class can keep going on. Because Marie says you're not done. You don't have to shut her down if you're not done.
Oh. I thought she said she was done.
So, women and children played a vital role in World War I. The women worked in munition factories, served as nurses, construction workers, telephone operators, and on farms. Working in munition factories was very dangerous and an important job. Working in a munition factory was a risky job as well. It started, as it stated in The Role of Women in World War I, some women were killed. Over 300 died from TNT poisoning and, as a result, explosions. Another important job during World War I during this time was farming. The women did the farming so that they would have food. After the war ended, the men came back and got their jobs back. The women went back to working on the house, raising children, and by the women working as phone operators, that links to social media.
Another here. I have 3 more facts. It was for another justice war to claim land and have the U.S. take over.
There were over 10 million Europeans killed during that war. Many of them happened to be civilians, about 2 million.
One death is a
10
tragedy.
seconds left.
Million deaths is a statistic, and British and French drifted apart.
That quote was said by Stalin, Joseph Stalin, after the Bolshevik Revolution during World War I.